I was the first blind person to ever compete at then it was FILA, but now it's United World Wrestling World Championships. I was the first New Zealander to ever do Greco-Roman at the Wrestling World Champs. Amazing. I was the first New Zealander to ever do freestyle and Greco-Roman at the same World Champs. I would be very surprised if another blind person has medaled at the world level of jiu-jitsu. If you count like Greco, freestyle, gi, no gi, judo, and I've also done a competition in Syrian traditional Korean wrestling. So, and beach wrestling, I guess. So I've competed in like seven different styles. Like, I just like testing and pushing myself, man. Like, I just like testing and pushing myself, man. Like,
5'8ers, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the 5'8 Take. In this episode, I've got quite an amazing guest. I really enjoyed this episode. His name is Clinton Terry, and he is a blind grappler. That's right, a blind grappler. In 2019, he went to the World Masters and got third place. In 2019, he also went to the Pan Americans, got second place. And he's also a 7-time Pan Pacific champion. Clinton was 2 when he lost his sight. However, his mother didn't treat him any different from his brothers. He was forced to live and not be cuddled, which you can clearly see in his message at the start of the episode that this was the right decision by his mother. He found wrestling at the age of 19. He lost his first 40 matches without scoring a point. Many would have given up, possibly after the first match. Not a real man like Clinton. He went on to become New Zealand national champion. He then moved on to BJJ and became a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Most recently, he had headlined the Combat Jiu-Jitsu event in Auckland, which for those of you that don't know, it's Jiu-Jitsu with striking. He won that event. Clinton's a remarkable person. In this episode, we discuss his upbringing, his loss of sight, his fears and nerves going into matches and how he controls this so you may be able to use it in your everyday life. And most of all, his mentality, which I believe out of all my guests is one of the highest. I hope you enjoy this episode. Oh, one more thing. This episode is brought to you by loanoptions.ai. Loan Options is Australia's first artificial intelligent loan marketplace for personal, business, and car loans. The AI tool plugs into all major lenders across Australia. So if you need a car loan, personal loan, business loan, equipment loan, caravan loan, motorcycle loan, whichever loan you need to get your feet done for those feet pics. Well, get a loan and get it done. Maybe you need your titties done. Get that done too. I recommend invest in yourself. Invest in business. Make a life for yourself. That's what I think is best. Go to loanoptions.ai/58. This episode is brought to you by Loan Options. All right, let's get into it.
You're listening to the 5'8 Take, Australia's podcast. Eat liver, gain knowledge, and always tan your balls.
Thank you for taking the time to come on, Clinton. I really appreciate it, mate.
Oh, no problem. It's been you caught me at a great time, actually. It's been a really crazy 3 weeks, but now I'm just starting to slow down a bit. So it's a good time.
Yeah. What's been happening on your end? If you want to just let the audience know just a little bit about yourself and a little bit of background before we fully dive into the episode.
A bit about me. My name's Clinton Terry. I've been grappling for 22 years now. I started out in wrestling, which I did for 15 years. I represented New Zealand for 8 years of that. And then I switched over to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the end of 2014. And I've been training just over 8 years now. I'm a brown belt under Pedro Fernandez at Tukaha Jiu-Jitsu here in New Zealand. And I've just opened a Tukaha affiliate a year ago called Daredevil Jiu-Jitsu. I've been coaching for longer than 1 year, Jiu-Jitsu, but I opened my own school officially a year ago. So yeah, other than that, you just have to ask questions because there's a lot, and I
there's
exactly what you want to know.
there's a lot there to unpack as well. Just how did the journey start, mate? And I want to get just how your senses and the feeling towards jiu-jitsu as how blind are you? Maybe we'll start there and then we'll break it down. Can you see me on the screen right now?
No, I cannot. So
right.
that's a good question. So, how blind am I? It's always an interesting question. People ask me, "Oh, what can you see?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." They're like, "What do you mean you have no idea?" And I'm like, "Well, I have nothing to compare it to." I say to people, "What can you see?" And they're like, "I can see everything." I'm like, "Describe everything to me." And they're like, "Oh, I can't." I'm like, "Well, no, come on, describe everything to me." And they're like, "Oh, no, I can't." I'm like, "Well, how can I describe to you what I can see? Because I literally have no reference to you." So the doctors reckon that my vision's like looking through 4 layers of that bubble wrap that you wrap parcels in.
Right.
If you look through that, apparently that's about what my vision is. But I can't confirm or deny that because, again, I have no memories of having full vision, so I'm not sure.
So you were blind. You were blind from birth. Is that right?
No. I had an allergic reaction to penicillin, and I developed something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and that caused me to go blind. Going blind was a side effect of that because Stevens-Johnson syndrome is a blistering of the body, and it especially attacks mucous membrane areas. So like my eyes, my nose, mouth, my lungs got badly affected. So the way I actually went blind with the blisters, every time I blinked, it scratched away all my corneas and tear ducts and stuff, and it just damaged the eye. And that's actually how I went blind. And I was about 2.5 when that happened. And I'm just about to turn 40 in a couple of weeks. So it was quite a while ago.
So yeah, so it's been a long time. Do you have a reference of senses? It's a little hard when you were 2, but can you, for example, do you feel that I don't know, your touch and feel is more heightened than others, or you don't have a reference point for that?
I don't think so, because I don't really have a reference point, but like listening to other people talk and things like that, and I don't like, people just assume you go blind, bang, you have superhero senses. It's not true. Everybody has the same senses. It's just, I think, and even me, like I can see light. I can see just a tiny bit. Like, for example, I can see the light of my iPad screen, but I can't see you on the iPad screen because I've got it a bit further away because of so that I fit in the camera and stuff. But I do have some sight. It's not complete blackout. And I think sight is just such an overpowering sense that people don't pay attention to their other senses as much. I mean, go and sit somewhere sometime and close your eyes and think, what can I pick up about my environment through smell? What can I pick up through hearing? What can I pick up through feel? Kids try and play games with me, especially on our mat. It's fun because we have a sprung floor, and they'll try and sneak up on me, and they're like, "How do you know that we're coming?" And I'm like, "Man, I can feel you walking through the floor. Like when you step on the mat, it's like it's a lot of vibration. So I know when people are moving on the mat and stuff." So, it's just, I think it's just learning to use the senses, not that they're naturally better.
And is there, from when you mean vibration, do you like feel like, as you mentioned, as soon as someone steps on the mat, you sort of sense that. Where do you think that comes from?
You literally no, like, because my mat, we have an awesome guy who helped us build our gym, and he built us a sprung floor. So we've got a mat on a raised platform, and there's like 1,000 foam bricks under the plywood. So like whenever anybody moves on there, it flexes and stuff, so you can literally feel the floor moving. It's the same as like in a gym. If it's on a sprung floor, like if you're sitting directly on concrete, I can't feel them coming up behind you because the concrete doesn't move. But
Gotcha.
It's just then maybe you hear them coming, or it's and sometimes you don't hear anything, and people can sneak up on you and
take the back, go for the rear naked.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it. And when did you start jiu-jitsu? Maybe we can dive into jiu-jitsu itself a bit. Actually, before we get into starting jiu-jitsu, what did you think of the latest Gordon Ryan match?
To be honest, I don't watch much of Gordon Ryan.
Of course,
it's probably a bit weird, controversial. No. When I say I don't watch, I do watch things. I use my iPad and I have my face pretty much glued to it, and I can see broad outline of what's going on. So like I watch MMA, I watch jiu-jitsu, but like I can't see the people. So I use my iPad for cornering people at competitions, but like I can't see who's who. So I really hope they're wearing opposite gis. So like I can kind of see what's going on in the match, but I don't have enough fine detail to see like the faces of the people. So occasionally, if they're both in like the same color gear and there's a mad scramble, I end up yelling at the wrong person, which is a bit embarrassing. So I usually have one of my team members there to like guide me, who's on top, who's on bottom, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But anyway, back to Gordon Ryan. It's kind of funny because
I don't know if that was a good question. Sorry, Clint. I don't know if that was a good question or a bad question. I'm asking you about, like, we just talked about being blind, and then I ask you, did you watch that match? So
no, that's what I'm saying. Like I rewatched the MMA yesterday. Like there was the UFC. There was some. I mean, oh my God, how Matt Schnell came back from being knocked out like that, and then and beat that Tibetan guy. But I don't watch Gordon that much because it's funny because he follows me on Instagram, and like I've actually had a couple of exchanges talking with him on Messenger, and it's been pretty polite. But I don't like shit talking. Like I don't know why people have to talk and bring each other down, and it's just crazy. Like when I started when I started wrestling, so many people were like, "Oh, you're not going to make it. You can't be any good." Like I told people I want to be a national champion. They're like, "You're dreaming." I had the head of the New Zealand Wrestling Union tell me I should quit wrestling because I wasn't going to achieve anything. And so having people like if I went into a gym and I trained with Gordon Ryan right back when I first started grappling, Gordon probably would have been like, "Oh, don't do jiu-jitsu. You're never going to be able to get it. Go away." Like, and I don't like that. And having he's the best in the world. Why does he need to like talk shit about other people and whatever? I tell my kids and stuff in the gym, like, if you're one of the best in the gym, your job is to bring everybody up and help everybody become better and all of that, not to bring people down and believe. And I know a lot of it is like other people started and whatever, but I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of that sort of trash talking to get attention kind of thing.
Do you think he could be doing that just like as a front, like as a facade, and then in the gym he's just a really nice person? Like he follows you, he's gone out of his way to, have interactions with you as well, and a lot of other competitors as well. Do you think that's more of a how to sell tickets?
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I just guess it's disappointing that people feel that they need to
Do
do
that.
that to sell tickets, right? Like, um, for me personally, I'm gonna watch like I would rather watch like super respectful people that, they get along, they friendly, they can put it aside when they get in the ring or on the mat, they do their thing, beat the crap out, and then laugh it out, and they're friends afterwards, and I don't know, talking, because the thing is like some people will know it's like a hype and it's like selling tickets or whatever, but a lot of people out there won't know that, and so when they start talking trash about people, it's like, well, you're talking trash about people. If you don't mean it and you don't think that sort of thing about people, why are you saying it? But then I'm a pretty black and white person, so.
That's very true. There's a competitor he's a young kid that's coming up at the minute, and he's my like favorite grappler right now. His name is Mika Galvão. He's from Brazil. And this kid is just so traditional with his jiu-jitsu, and he just goes through people, but he's so happy and charismatic. He doesn't say anything bad about anyone, and he's gotten about like quite a large amount of notoriety. So that he looks like a blueprint of, you don't need a trash talk and your jiu-jitsu can speak for itself.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've got people on both sides. I mean, jiu-jitsu is very small here in New Zealand, so I think it's funny when people are on social media trash talking and stuff anyway. But we got two people that I can think of in New Zealand that are complete polar opposites. We've got a brown belt, his jiu-jitsu is super good. Like, he's got amazing jiu-jitsu and everything. But whenever he goes to like, he doesn't just trash talk people online. Like he'll be at events and he's hit a guy in a tournament. He doesn't let go of submissions. And then when he gets in trouble, he like flips off the audience and stuff. And I was like, man, why are you doing that? And then we've got another guy who's a black belt. He's so good. He's really dangerous. And he's just happy. He talks to everybody, and he's always got a good word to say to everybody and like compliment them. And, oh, hey man, you had a really good performance today. And I don't know. If you're super good at jiu-jitsu, I feel like it's some sort of insecurity that you need to be, I don't know, trash talking. And, well, I mean, if it sells tickets and stuff, these guys are making money out of it. I don't make money out of it, but even if I was getting paid, I personally, it's personal choice, but I personally wouldn't do that. And so if I'm watching people that are competing, I'd much rather watch like Mika compete than Gordon, say, because I like the fact that he's so respectful and but yet when he goes out on the mat, he's going to try and kill you, right? But it's not personal, and it's not, and then afterwards it's not, oh, you're so shit, or you're so terrible. Where did you get your belt from, or anything like that? It's just, oh, thank you for the match type of thing.
When did you start jiu-jitsu, Clinton? What was that drive that made you step onto the mats?
Well, I started wrestling when I was 19. So, oh my goodness, 99. I lived in a small town in New Zealand called Featherston. There wasn't really anything to do there. And my brother came home one day, my youngest brother, and he was like, oh, I found a wrestling club. You should come down and check it out. And I thought he meant WWE wrestling. So I was like, nah, go away, not interested, whatever. And he's like, no, come on. He was about 11 at the time. He was super young. And I was like, nah, bugger off, whatever. And my mom came out and she's like, just go with him, keep him happy with it. So I went down, I went in, and I gave it a go, and I loved it because I've always been into sport. I've tried everything. I tried soccer, rugby, and all that. And as you can imagine, as a blind person, the ball's going one way, Clinton's running the other way. It's not quite
ideal,
blind friendly.
Yes.
So I walked into the room, and I'm like, here's a sport where you grab hold of each other, and you win by throwing them on the ground and pinning them. And I was like, man, I can do this. So I did that. I wrestled for 15 years. As I said, people told me I wouldn't get anywhere. I told them I wanted to be a national champion. I lost my first 40 matches in a row without scoring a single point.
Sorry, how many matches?
40, 40.
40 matches in a row without scoring any points.
A point. Yes.
Wow.
And I kept telling everybody, oh, I'm going to be a national champ. I'm going to be a national champ. And eventually I met this Japanese guy, Koji Hirabayashi, and he had wrestled for the Japanese Olympic team back in 1964. And he said to me, he was doing a seminar, and he was like, what do you want to do with wrestling? And I was like, I want to be a national champion, because he'd never seen a blind person do wrestling before. And he was like, there's he was moving to New Zealand. He was like, there's a lot of work to be done, so we better get onto it. I'll tell you what, if you help me with my English, I'll help you with my with your wrestling. And I was like, sweet deal. So we did that. Finally, in 2007, I won my first national title for wrestling. And then the next year I went to the Oceanias, to the Olympic qualifiers. And I was like, yeah, sweet. I'm good at wrestling now. I'm going to do well. And I got absolutely smashed. So I came back to New Zealand, and I was like, next year I'm going to win gold. So we trained real hard for a year. And I went back to the Oceanias in 2009, and I won gold. And so then I ended up winning 10 national titles for wrestling and a bunch of Oceania titles and stuff. From 2009 to 2014, I was in national championship finals, and I was in Oceania finals every year for those 5 years. But in that time, I started coaching wrestling, and I had two young kids that I started teaching in 2008. By 2014, they were starting to come up and go into my age and weight divisions. And I was like, okay, well, I've got a bit of a dilemma now, right? Because wrestling is not like jiu-jitsu. Wrestling, you have to qualify for things. You can't just go and sign up. It's more like ADCC than like IBJJF Worlds or whatever. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in a bit of a dilemma now, right? Do I help these kids and coach them to the best of my ability, and maybe they take my national team spot? Or do I coach them and maybe they take my national team spot? So I was like, well, I've had my run. I'll retire from competing wrestling and I'll work on them, because I knew that they had potential to go really far. And a friend of mine who had been coming and doing some wrestling with us did jiu-jitsu, and I'd been out and visited the club a couple of times, but he was like, come and coach wrestling, and you can train jiu-jitsu. So I started taking a wrestling class there, and I was like, okay, I've retired from competing. That's it. I'm just going to do jiu-jitsu for fun and coach wrestling. And then the guys were like, we're going to nationals, you should come do it. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So I went, and of course, because of my wrestling background, I had to fight in blue belt, and I got silver at the nationals. So I thought, it'd be real crazy as a blind person to not just be a national champion in one sport, but to really show the doubters and be national champion in both sports. So I trained pretty seriously, and the next year I got gold in the blue belt division. And then they were like, we're going to PAMPAX in Australia at the end of the year. Do you want to come? And I was like, all right, then. So I ended up over in PAMPAX, and my first PAMPAX, I got 2 gold and a bronze. And then I was like, you know what would be cool if I could get a world medal? So I was like, 2016, I went to the world champs, lost my first match 2-2, 1 advantage. And I'm like, man, I could actually do this. Like, I could get a world medal. So I kept going. That was the adult world champs. Then the next year, 2017, I went to the adults and the masters worlds. And then
what
28.
What age were you when you did that switch over, Clinton, of the blue belt? What age were you then when you switched from the wrestling to jiu-jitsu?
I was 32 already.
Gotcha.
So in 2019, I got silver at the Pan Americans at Masters purple belt. And then at the end of the year, I got bronze at the World Masters at Masters purple belt. And so I was like, well, I proved to everybody that blind people can do whatever they want in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now it's all just candy on the cake for me. I just compete because I like competing alongside my daughter. I'm crazy, so I like to set first and do crazy things. So after we went into lockdown in 2020, after I saw EBI the first time, Combat Jiu-Jitsu, I was like, I wonder if as a blind person I could do that, because I know I can't do MMA, like that's a step too high. But I was like, I reckon I could have a Combat Jiu-Jitsu fight. And I heard that some people in New Zealand were thinking about running a Combat Jiu-Jitsu super fight thing. So I started playing around at training with some Combat Jiu-Jitsu, and then they announced they were looking for some Combat Jiu-Jitsu matches. And straight away I told them, yeah, I want to have a fight. And so I was actually one half of the first ever Combat Jiu-Jitsu fight in New Zealand as well. And I won that too, which is pretty cool.
Amazing, mate.
That was terrifying. Like, oh my god!
For those that
the guy was going to try and knock me out. Like,
for those that don't know, Combat Jiu-Jitsu is it's a elevation of jiu-jitsu where they add in slaps and palm strikes. So straight palm strikes, people have been knocked out. It was invented by Eddie Bravo, and it's an evolution from EBI to Eddie Bravo's new baby, which is Combat Jiu-Jitsu. So you ended up winning that one in New Zealand with the strikes.
Yeah, so there's actually a video of it on YouTube. If people want to check it out, they can look at Blind Grappler, Clinton Terry, and Combat Jiu-Jitsu Super Fight, and they'll find it.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. But I just like testing myself.
What was your nerves going? So yeah, sorry. Please go on. I was going to say, what was your nerves going into it, and how did you manage that? It would have been quite stressful going into a striking situation.
Well, it's the same straight. Like, I'm always a nervous competitor anyway. Before the World Champs, where I won, I threw up 80% of the time before I competed. In the morning, I'd be in the toilet throwing up. So I always had bad nerves anyway. And it wasn't nerves of fighting the person or competing against the person, but letting people down. Like, I didn't like letting my family down. I didn't like people down who sponsored me and helped me financially to get to events. I didn't like letting my team down. I didn't like going back to my team and saying, man, you guys invested time and effort into me and I didn't achieve. So those are things that made me nervous. Not losing. I hate losing, don't get me wrong, but losing doesn't make me scared. Losing just makes me mad. Like, I'll go outside, find a private place, kick some stuff, and then go back to the gym the next day and work my ass off because, I'm not afraid of losing. I'm not even really like, if I really thought about all the injuries that I've had over the years when I competed, I would never get on the jiu-jitsu mat. Like, so I'm not even afraid of getting hurt, because if I was afraid of that, I wouldn't get on. I'm just afraid of letting people down. The nerves for the Combat Jiu-Jitsu fight, that, leading up to it, I was going through stages of, this is going to be okay, no problem. And, oh, damn, what the hell did I sign up for? Why am I doing this? But I think the worst part of it was the fact that it was like the main event of the night. So it was like in the afternoon. So I had to sit at home all day waiting. And I know at the end of the day, I'm going to get smacked around by this guy who, and then we're at the event, they're giving us the rules briefing and I said to them, oh, what happens in the case of bleeding? Because we didn't have blood tests done. And they were like, oh, if someone starts bleeding, we'll stop the match and give you a couple of minutes to try to get it sorted. And then, if you can't get it sorted, it'll be a TK loss or whatever. I was like, oh, well, probably shouldn't be too much blood. And the guy that I'm fighting goes, oh, if I break your nose, there's going to be heaps of blood. So I'm like, oh, alrighty then. So, and yeah, but you know, my daughter was there watching, so I didn't really want to get beaten up in front of my daughter. But you know, that's I like testing myself, and I like doing things. And as I said, I like sitting the first. Like, I was the first blind person to ever compete at then it was FILA, but now it's United World Wrestling World Championships. I was the first New Zealander to ever do Greco-Roman at the Wrestling World Champs. Amazing. I was the first New Zealander to ever do freestyle and Greco-Roman at the same World Champs.
It's amazing.
I don't know, because I haven't been able to find anything, but I would be very surprised if another blind person has medaled at the world level of jiu-jitsu.
Which is incredible. Sorry, you were saying another one?
No, just crazy. I've competed in like 5 different, if you count like Greco, freestyle, gi, no gi, judo, and I've also done a competition in Syrian traditional Korean wrestling. So, you know, and beach wrestling, I guess. So I've competed in like 7 different styles. Like, I just like testing and pushing myself, man. Like, what's life for other than to go out and I don't want to just sit around at home and do nothing all day. And, you know, and now I have a gym, and not only have I succeeded in competition, but I've been coaching jiu-jitsu since 2017. I started coaching kids, and last year we opened the gym. I don't know. There's a sub-only event down here. They've run 5 events now. My gym have been 5 events in Auckland. My gym's been the #1 gym at that 3 out of 5. We just took our first team to Australia to compete. We took 8 athletes. We got 3 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze. So everybody medaled. You know that.
I can't express how insane that mentality is, like, to compete at all those events at that level, to have the initial like 40 losses without like gaining a point and continuing the journey and overcoming everything and coming back and winning is absolutely incredible. What's your favorite match that you've had in jiu-jitsu?
In 2019, in my draw, on my side of the draw, I had the #5 ranked purple belt at Masters in the world at that time. And he was my quarterfinal match to make it into the semis. And if I beat him, I knew I was going to. So basically, that was my world medal match. You know, like if I won that match, I was a medalist. If I didn't, I was out. And I took him down and I won. And I only won 2-0. But, you know, he was the #5 ranked guy, not just in the division, but he was the #5 ranked guy in the whole world. Incredible. And I beat him by 2 points. And it wasn't so much the fact that I beat him, but my daughter, because there's so many mats at World Masters and stuff, my daughter was allowed inside the bullpen to guide me to the mats and stuff. And to go out and hug my daughter and tell her I won a world medal, that was pretty special, man. Like, and then the other 2 that I think really stand out is when I won my first major title in the US. Oh, sorry, I actually lost. So I got to the final at Pan Am's, and then I lost the final by 2 points. And I went off the mat and I grabbed my cane and I took my cane back onto the mat and I unfolded it and I held it up on the mat, like, and man, I just stood there and the whole Pan Am Stadium suddenly, like, people start realizing and they start making noise and they're like, what's going on? Suddenly, next thing, the whole stadium realizes there's a blind guy out there that's just won, well, you know, that he's just been in the finals, and the whole stadium was going crazy. So that was pretty cool. And then my favorite match in New Zealand, I lost it, was I got to fight one of Chrome Gracie's black belts in a sub-only match. He's really
in a
good. He's
sub
really
only
nice
match.
guy.
For those that don't know, that's no time limit.
No, there was a time limit. It was a 10-minute time limit.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so, and my claim to fame there is that I fireman's them, because I'm known for the fireman's throw, and I fireman's threw him, and as soon as I threw him like real clean, I was like, sweet, I don't care, because I knew he was probably gonna tap me. I'm like, I'm all good with tapping him. I throw it from Gracie black belt. I'm good.
I love that. I love that.
It's funny. He's living in New Zealand at the moment, and he came into one of our open matches just recently, and he's like, he hadn't seen me since the comp because of lockdowns and COVID and stuff. And he was like, man, Clinton, that fireman you hit on me is the best fireman I've ever had done on me. I'm like, that's a compliment. I love it. Thank you so much. I was like, yeah, but you armbarred me. And he laughed, and he's like, yeah, I armbar everyone.
I love it. What was the Combat Jiu-Jitsu in New Zealand? I didn't get to ask just before. What was the outcome of that match? How did it end?
I won in overtime. So yeah, it went the distance, 10 minutes. And then it went to the overtime, and I won by I submitted him very quickly in the overtime, and then I escaped very quickly. I took the back and strangled him very quickly, and then he went armbar spiderweb. Luckily, I kind of had guessed that if I ended up in overtime, that would be the position be in. So I'd done a lot of work with it on my team.
Was the overtime the EBI rules overtime? Did you?
Yeah, it was the EBI rules overtime. Yeah.
So did you pick the back, or did you go the arm?
Yeah, I picked the back because I'm much more comfortable in the back. Gotcha. I think I'm the only brown belt in New Zealand that, I literally only have one armbar finish ever in my whole jiu-jitsu career. So
why is that?
I was like, yeah, I don't know. I've never gelled with armbars, and I don't know. I've always looked for the neck. So yeah, and then in no-gi, it's either the neck or the legs. I'm not the greatest leg locker around, but I have a few wins by heel hook and a few wins by toe hold. But in the gi, I'm usually looking for the neck. So yeah, I literally only have one armbar win ever. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to be on the guy's back.
Clint, how do you what is the process you go through for learning a new position?
The best way for me is to have people do it on me. So my team were very happy once my coach worked this out, because for like 7 years I was the demonstration dummy. So they were quite happy about that. Getting crushed and strangled, and it's just a great time. But yeah, having something done on me is my best way of learning. And I think it's a real advantage for me working with my partners as well, because I know exactly how the technique should feel when the coach does it to me. So when my partner does it, when I'm drilling with them, if it doesn't feel exactly the way he made me feel, I know they're not doing something right, and I can guide them through it and guide them to the exact way he made me feel, rather than just watching the position and, because you're watching the position and you're like, oh yeah, maybe I got it right, maybe I don't, maybe, but experiencing what that technique actually feels like is a different thing, right?
Very interesting. Yeah. So that's what you mean by when you say I was a test dummy for most of the time, you would be the person that the coach would do it on. So
demonstrating on.
You get the feeling of what it really is from the black belt. Yeah. So then when you go to the training session with everyone else, you'll be able to see, look, that doesn't feel right.
So, when you go into class and they're like, okay, we're going to demonstrate the technique, they would just pick me as the person to demonstrate on all the time. Because what would happen, for the first couple of months, what happened was, they would demonstrate the technique on whoever they were doing it on. And then I have to call them over and say, hey, can you do it on me? And they'd do it on me like one time. And then I've had to learn very quickly, because, a lot of the time that's how it was. Like, they just come over, do it on me one time. Oh, do you get it? Yep. I got it because I don't want to hold up the rest of the class, right? But
Mm.
Pedro was really good. He worked out at Pedro and Jonathan. They worked out very quickly that, you know what, instead of just doing it on him once when he calls us over, let's just demonstrate on him when we're doing it for the class. Because usually when a coach is showing something to the class, they do it 3 or 4 times, right?
Mm.
And they're talking about all the details as they do it, not, okay, here it is, bang, 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 bang. Okay, do you get it? Yeah, okay, done. But they're talking about all the details. They're going through it step by step by step. And they do that a few times. So it became much easier for them, right? Because they just demonstrate on me. It doesn't hold up the class. They get to demonstrate it on me more than one time, which I appreciate. And they get to go through the detail a little bit more with me. Well, not with me per se, but for the whole class. But I'm getting as much of the detail as everybody else, rather than I'm just sitting there trying to. Now that I'm more experienced, I can visualize a lot of what coaches are talking about, because I understand when they say De La Riva hook, deep De La Riva hook, grab the pants, grab the cuff of the pants by the ankle, grab it at the knee, grab it at the elbow. It's just good that they demonstrated on me, and that's how I learned.
And it was great that they had that sight of vision to assess your learnings and implement that in class to everyone. What's your message to anyone that's newly blind?
My message wouldn't be necessarily to people that are newly blind, but to parents of people that are newly blind. Please don't be soft on your loved ones if they lose their sight. I know that it's.
What do you mean?
Tough,
don't be soft. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So my mom was very tough on me. My mom said, "Clinton, you live in a sighted world. The world is not going to make accommodations for you. You need to learn how to exist in the world." So, like, for example, if I left my shoes somewhere and I'm like, "Mom, I don't know where my shoes are," she's like, "Bad luck. You should leave them somewhere where you know where they are." "Oh, I don't know where my stuff is." "Well, you should leave it where you know where it is." My mom was a clean freak. In the weekends, before we were allowed to go out and do anything, my mom there were 5 of us, brothers and sisters. We'd all be given a room in the house, and we'd have to clean it, vacuum, clean the walls, dust everything, whatever. And I was given my room just like everybody else was. It wasn't like, oh, he was blind, he doesn't have to do that. And then her friends would be like, "Oh, how do you get him to clean walls? Like he can't see the marks." My mom was like, "Well, he better learn to clean it in a pattern then, haven't he? Because if he doesn't clean the marks, then he's not leaving until it's done." And the problem is, and I understand, like, when somebody goes through something so hard, because it is so hard when you lose your sight, like, there's a lot of people out there that are cruel, and especially kids, you can get bullied, and you understand as a parent that their life is not going to be the same, and it is going to be difficult. But the thing is, if you try and make it easy, and do things for them, and you're disadvantaging your kids. Like, "Mom,
You're saying that
go get it yourself." Like, make them as independent as you can. The temptation is to make their life easy because you feel bad and you don't want to see them go through the struggle, because it is hard. Like, when you're blind and you learn to cook, it's harder than normal people. When you're blind and you learn to do the laundry and hanging out the laundry and all of that, it is hard, because it is hard it's not as easy as for sighted people. Getting around is not easy. Like, I take the bus. I have buses drive past and leave me all the time. But you want your kids to grow up as independent as possible. And my mom was so tough on me. Like, we'd go for bushwalks and I'd be holding on to her arm, just like being guided like a normal blind person. And she'd just be walking at her normal speed. And like, we're walking through the bush, like over roots and stuff. And I'm like, "Slow down." She's like, "No, you got to keep up. Like, trust in your guide." And a couple of times, man, she walked me into stuff, and she nearly knocked me out one time. We're bushwalking because I grew taller than her and she didn't realize. and she walked me into a tree branch and it nearly knocked me out. And instead of my mom being like, "Oh, are you okay?" or whatever, she's like, "You better get up and walk," because I was like, "I'm gonna leave you here." But I'm so thankful for that, because, man, if my mom hadn't been tough on me, I would just sit around at home. I know so many blind people, they're too nervous to go out by themselves. They don't do anything. I go out by myself. I get myself to training. I get myself home from training. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I take my daughter overseas. Like, just recently, my daughter and I went to Australia to compete. We traveled together through the airport and stuff. You know, I do all this stuff by myself, but I see so many blind people that are too nervous and they would never do something like that. And the only reason that I do that is because my mom was tough on me, and she didn't make excuses for my blindness and like, oh, try to make it easy for me. She made it tough, and I'm so thankful for that. To blind people who want to start jiu-jitsu, man, jiu-jitsu is an awesome sport for you to get into. Never mind the fact that jiu-jitsu itself is awesome, because you meet a lot of amazing people and you make a lot of friends and all of that. But jiu-jitsu is literally a sport where, as a blind person, you can go and compete with able-bodied people. And if you're willing to put in the work, and, you know, it is going to be harder, you are going to have to put in more work. But if you are willing to put in the work, you can get high-level results in an able-bodied sport. So, you know, I totally recommend getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's why I do a lot of social media. I don't like social media. A lot of social media is sad, and on my social media, I try and look at puppies and jiu-jitsu. It's literally all I want to see.
I love that.
But the reason I do social media and I keep sharing all my stories, because I get a message, or between 1 and 5 messages a month, either from blind people that are like, "Oh, I saw your story and I'm going to my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. Thank you so much." Or coaches reaching out to me, "Hey, Clinton, I've got a blind person. They've got in contact me. They want to come and try my class. Is there anything I can do to make it easier for them? You know, what do you recommend?" I teach, like, what's the best way to go about it. And that, to me, makes it worthwhile to share my story. And that's why I keep trying to get my story out there and try and have as many people as possible hear my story. Because, you know, so many people used to say, "Oh, Clinton, you're so inspiring," whatever, when I wrestled. And I didn't see it. I'm like, man, I'm just another athlete. I wasn't very good. I wasn't naturally athletic. I wasn't naturally talented. The only thing I had, which I think was an advantage over most people, if I had to say I had an advantage, was that I'm more stubborn than most people. I'm very stubborn, and I don't quit on things if I want them. And a lot of people don't have that, right? So it's a blessing and a curse. But, you know, I just... anybody can do it. And I didn't do this to become famous or well known or anything. And I didn't even do it to inspire other people. I literally did it because wrestling was fun and it was a sport that I could do. Then I wanted to be a national champion, because who doesn't want to be a national champion? And then I wanted to be an international champion. And okay, part of that was to prove the doubters wrong, but I didn't need to be on social media to tell them that. It was funny. I had a run-in with that guy who told me, he was the head of the New Zealand Wrestling Union, when he told me I should quit wrestling because I was never going to be anywhere. He was at a competition and I was cornering one of my athletes, and he was like, "Oh, Clinton, do you remember who I am?" And I turned around and I said to him, "Man, I remember everybody who told me I would be nothing."
Wow.
And,
what did he say after that?
Oh yeah, he goes to me, "I never said that." I said, "Yes, you did." And then he had the cheek to go, "Oh, well, it motivated you to do well and prove me wrong, didn't it?" Like it was a plan of his to. And I'm like, "No, your plan was that I would quit wrestling and you would never hear from me again. I am the one who made me successful in whatever." If it
100%.
wasn't for me, like if it was me listening to you, I would quit and I'd be at a completely different place in my life. The next time someone walks into a wrestling gym and tells you they got big goals, how about instead of saying it's impossible, be like, okay, it's going to be tough, but let's see what we have to do to make you achieve those goals.
Exactly.
And then I walked off.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, people like that. Yeah, I just maybe he himself felt some guilt in there, and he himself had to flip it in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but it's just funny.
100%. Yeah, and
but it's like all the people that come out, right? And it's anybody that has like started at the bottom and then has success later on. They all know this. Like there are people that come out and they're like, I always knew you could do it. You're like, no, you didn't. You're only saying that now because I made it, and you want to jump on and be like, yeah, that Clinton guy, I knew he was going to be really good at grappling, and I told him as a blind person. It's like, no, there are very few people that believed that I could make it when I started grappling, and I could probably count them on one hand and maybe less than one hand, and everybody else. Oh, some people would have been ambivalent, like they're like, oh, I don't know whether he can make it or whatever. But there's literally only like 4 or 5 people that when I started saying, I want to be a national champion, I want to be an international champion, I want to be a world champion, and they're like, yes, if you work hard at it, you can make it happen. So
where does that self-belief come from, Clinton? Do you mentioned your mother. Do you have a father in your life? And do you have a father in your life?
No.
So there's that determination and the tenacity to keep on going comes essentially from your mother's side.
My mom and my grandfather. My mom and my grandfather. My grandfather is crazy. He's really unwell now. It's sad. He's like in the last months of his life, but for example, he was supposed to die 5 years ago. He's still alive.
Is that what the doctors said, or?
Yeah, that's what the doctor said. He was a commercial fisherman. He's one of the hardest workers I ever knew. Up working, like, just crazy hard worker. And I think part of it came from that. And his philosophy is if you start something, you finish it. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble in my grappling career because I don't pull out of things. My wife gets real mad at me about it, but I get injured and everyone's like, you should pull out. And I'm like, I signed up, I'm going to finish it. There's only twice where I've been injured where literally I've been forced out because of the medics. One was in a wrestling match where they thought I'd punctured my stomach. And I still wanted to go fight. My stomach was just making these weird sounds. And I was like, I'm going to go fight. And the medic was like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes, I am. And he was like, no, you're going to the hospital. And I was like, okay. And the other time was when my first Pan Pacific champs, I fought a guy that was 55 kilo heavier than me in the open weight. And I tried to take it. Oh my goodness.
Oh, you're back.
Sorry. Sorry. 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you? You just ring Aurora and tell her that anyway, yeah. So I went to take him down. I split my intercostal muscle in half. I actually fought 5 more matches in the open weight that day before my rib dislocated and went over the top of the other rib. And and the referee, when he guided me off the mat, he was like, man, it's been such an honor, but I'm glad you're not fighting on my mat anymore because every match you were whimpering more and more and more when you were fighting. I didn't even know it was happening. And he was like, you were literally whimpering the entire time you were fighting. And I'm just fighting these guys and finding a way to win. He's like, man, it's just so crazy. Now last year, in the first match of the comp, I got my foot popped in a toe hold and I fought 5 more matches. I don't like pulling out of something. If I start something, I won't stop.
What's a message that you have to young men these days that they're lacking confidence, they're lacking discipline, and they're looking for purpose and are scared to do things? What's your message that you have for them?
Again, first of all, to their parents, discipline your children and give them discipline and stuff, because in this day and age, there's so much lack of discipline anyway. But to them, I say, again, it comes back to social media and stuff, right? But in this day and age, it's cool to be disrespectful and all of that, but actually it's not cool. And if you're disrespectful and you don't look after people, and it doesn't make you tough or anything like that. Be a respectful human being. Go out of your way to be kind to someone every day, and ask a stranger how their day's going, or if you see someone walking up the street and they're struggling carrying something, offer to help them, or stand up and give your seat to somebody on the bus who looks like they are struggling to stand up, or I saw some young guys on a bus, and this pregnant woman got on the bus and she was like, "Excuse me, can I sit down? I'm sure." And they were like, "No." And I'm like,
disgrace.
Get out of that seat now. Like, I told them they had to move, because it's like, be respectful and find something that you are passionate about and do it and try and achieve. And the other thing that I would say to the youth of today is, because it's kind of become almost, if you want to be the best at something, it's almost become wrong to want to do that. And I think that's so bad. Like, I really hate the fact that they take winning and losing out of school. My daughter came home a few years ago, and they'd had a T-ball game at school. And I said, "Oh, did your team win?" And she's like, "Oh, we're not allowed to count. We're not allowed to say who wins and loses." I was like, "Wait, what? Why?" She's like, "Oh, because you're not allowed. No, there is no winner and there is no loser. Like, everybody just plays or whatever."
Ridiculous.
And I think this is silly. Not because, now see, it's not because I think kids need to learn how to win. That's not the problem. I think kids need to learn how to lose. Like, they're not learning this lesson at schools anymore. And the lesson they need to learn is that sometimes you lose, and it's okay to lose, so long as when you lose, you go back and you better yourself and you try again. Losing is not a reason to give up and quit. Losing is just I've got to get better, and I'm going to go away and get better, and then I'm going to come back and give it another go. And the problem is, they're taught all the way through school, don't compete with people. It doesn't matter whether you win. It's just whether you give it a try that matters. And then what happens is, and I think this is the reason there's so much more depression and stuff these days. When they come out of school, they suddenly realize everything in life, literally everything, is a competition. You're competing to rent your house. You're competing to get a job. You're competing to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You're literally competing for everything. And then when they fail, they haven't been given the tools at school to deal with, hold on a minute, I failed, and they don't have the tools to deal with that. So, I think the other message I'd give is, like, if you lose, it's okay. Like, just take the loss and work out what it is that made you lose, fix the problems, and go and get better at it. I mean, as I said, I'm not naturally good at what I do. I lost 40 fights in a row without scoring a point. I had to do a lot of learning, and I tell all my kids' parents, and I think they find it, like, some of them find it a bit weird, but I'm like, I don't like it if kids get gold at their first jiu-jitsu tournament. I don't like it. My perfect result for a kid at their first comp would be a win and a loss. Win so that they get the taste of what winning feels like, and a loss that they're like, I have to go back to the gym and work harder so I can get that winning feeling again. But if I had to say, would I rather a kid won 5 matches and get a gold medal, or lose a hard match and, just at the one match their first time? I would rather they lost their first match, because if they win, then they start thinking it's too easy, right? If they lose, then you can always go to them as a coach and say, look, losing is part of the game. Let's go back to the gym and work hard, and next time it'll be your time to win, right? So yeah, I find the kids that are naturally good and they win everything all the time, and then they have a loss, they're the ones that quit and they stop competing. Oh, I don't like competing anymore because I lost. It's like, oh, come on, man. There's very few people in the world that are gonna go through life without experiencing a loss. Losing is okay. It's what you do with that loss that's the big issue.
I couldn't agree more. And talking about jiu-jitsu matches and winning and losing, I think you posted it the other day. Your daughter got a armbar finish. She dropped to guard, and then she set up the armbar, and she broke the posture until the girl went up, and then she shot the armbar and she got it.
Yeah. My daughter's I'm getting scared of my daughter. So my daughter's 15 and she's only been competing 6 months less training 6 months less than I have. Her goal at the moment is to medal at the Pan American Championships next year. So we've just been putting her into every competition that we can. She's only competed twice against kids this year. All her other events have been against adults, mainly in the adult blue belt division. She has had one tournament where she fought in the purple belt division. That was in sub only, and she went to 2 decisions that she lost. But we target things, right? Like some comps we go there and we're like, we're here to win today. Some comps we go there and we're there to work on particular skill sets under stress. So like she likes pulling guard, but I might go to a comp that's not a big comp, and I might be like, okay, Aurora, today you're not allowed to pull guard. You have to wrestle then. Or Aurora, today you're not allowed to armbar then, because she's known for her armbars. But I'll be like, okay, today you're allowed to use any other submission but armbars. So I'll put limitations on her so that or she'll say to me, Dad, I want to hit this particular sweep in the comp today. This is what I'm looking for. Because, if you just go out and just win using your game, I mean, sure, you will win, but to win in America, especially coming from New Zealand, you've got to push yourself in different ways, because, the level of jiu-jitsu in New Zealand is not at the level of jiu-jitsu in America. I mean, we're not even at the level of Australia yet. So, we have to really, and I do it with all my kids. Like I put, depending on the comp, I put limitations on certain kids, just to make it harder and tougher for them to develop parts of their game under pressure that I think they haven't had to work on or whatever. Because a lot of my kids, they want to do well overseas. And, we did okay in Australia. As I said, we took our first team over there nearly
New South Wales State comp, I think. Yeah.
It was only 2 weeks ago. Oh my goodness, it feels like so long, but it was only 2 weeks ago I was over there. And the kids technically they all did really well, but the problem that they had was pace control of the match, because there's a lot of sub only here in New Zealand, so they used to that just go hard all the time trying to get the finish. So like I had a girl who was up 9-0. And I was like, settle down, just, like, you don't need a rush now. And she just kept rushing, and she got caught in an armbar. And I was like, well, you didn't need that to happen. You were winning 9-0. Or, you lost that match. The girl didn't beat you. You lost that match. So that was the main thing. But it's good. It gives us stuff to come back and work on here. And, we definitely don't think we're the best at jiu-jitsu, but we have big goals for Daredevil. We want to be the best gym in New Zealand. I'm competitive, but I don't, when I say best gym in New Zealand, though, I don't just mean competitors, because a lot of people in New Zealand who don't know my gym or who haven't been there, they think we're about competing all the time. and that's all we're about. But to be honest, we actually have a very small competitive team. We have 100 members now at Daredevil, and only about 15 of my people compete, and most of them are kids. So we actually don't have a big competitive team. It's just the kids that have been competing are getting more experience now. But what I'm really so lucky with, and what I'm building at Daredevil, is I want to share the experience that I've had with Aurora. And, you know, we've trained together, we've traveled together, we've competed together, and it's brought us closer together. You know, it's been such a special journey that I want other families to be able to experience this. And we have a lot of parents that are now training with their kids. And I love that, you know, like some of the kids, they do the kids class and then they stay for the adult class, and they're training with their parents, you know. Some of the parents are competing alongside their kids. And we've got about, I don't know, maybe 10 families now that, you know, basically their whole family trains. And that's the sort of thing I really want to push. So yeah, having good competition results is good, but if we have good competition results, but the culture at our gym was crap, you know, I wouldn't be proud of our competition results, because that wouldn't help me. Like for example, just recently in the competition in Napier, the one where Aurora got that armbar, there was a young green belt girl, and she jumped up, and she was 13, and she jumped up into the adult division for the first time to get some tough matches. I actually think there was nobody in her weight division, so she jumped up into the adult division, and only her mum was cornering her, and the girl was losing. And Aurora said to her mum, "Hey, would you mind if I give some advice to your daughter?" And the mum was like, "Oh, please do." So Aurora started cornering her. She was down on points, and then the girl pulled it around and ended up winning the match. And that's the sort of thing that I like about my team, right? Yes, we have huge support for each other, but we'll support other people in the community as well. And my kids do that all the time. Like, we'll be at comps, and if we don't have a Daredevil person competing, they'll pick random people to just start cheering and making lots of noise for, and you know, like, and people come up and they notice, and they come up like, "Man, your guys' team spirit's super awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I promote that." And we have a 2-week trial at our gym, which is probably one of the longest trials that, you know, you come in, you trial for 2 weeks before you decide. And what I don't tell people when they come in trial is that the trial's not just going one way. They're not just trialing the gym, we're trialing them. And if they get to the end of the 2-week trial and I think they won't help the culture of my gym, I'll just be like, "Sorry, I don't think you're going to fit in the culture of my gym. I think you'll be better off finding another gym." Because the money doesn't matter to me as much as building an awesome environment. So when I say best gym, I mean, like, yeah, we want to have really awesome jiu-jitsu, but I want Daredevil to be a place where people are like, I want to go visit that gym. When I go to that gym visit, everyone makes me feel welcome. Everybody shares knowledge. Everybody's so helpful there. Everybody looks after me. Like, yeah, I want to have great facilities. You know, when people walk in, I want people to go, "Wow, that gym looks nice." You know, it's not just best competitors or the best jiu-jitsu. I mean, best all round.
I love that.
So.
Yeah, no, I truly think you're an inspiration, definitely, Clinton. And hats off to you. Hats off to your accomplishments. Hats off to your tenacity and your will to keep going. I didn't know you had the initial 40 losses with no points and then come back and winning everything else. It's a credit to your hard work and your mindset, which, I truly appreciate. Where can people find Daredevil in Auckland? Next time you're in Sydney, definitely come by Gracie Ataman. You definitely have a home there with us. But where can people find your gym, and where can people find you? And if you want to leave them with a final message.
So you can find Daredevil Jiu-Jitsu in Henderson, West Auckland. And if you just send a message to either me on my social media, you can find me at Blind Grappler, or if you message the Daredevil page, our social media person will get back to you. We love visitors. There's no mat fees or anything. Please come by and visit. We just love having visitors. Yeah, follow me if you're interested in more of my story. Follow me at Blind Grappler on Instagram. I'm always getting up to crazy stuff and trying to post my story. And final message, just remember, like, you know, as I said earlier, you know, losing doesn't define you. It's how you deal with losing. And, you know, if you lose, get back up, because as I said, it took me 40 times before I even started winning a match. And now I'm a 10-time national wrestling champion. I'm an 8-time national Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. You know, I'm a world medalist. Okay, I was at the Masters, but if people have never been to the World Masters, don't knock it till you try it, because it's tough. And, you know, and just because I'm that successful, here's the other thing. Just because I have had that success, I still have losses. Like, I've lost matches this year, you know, like I don't win everything that I compete at even now. So, you know, it's just, and enjoy life, you know, have a goal and set your goals, aim for big goals, enjoy life, and, you know, have lots of fun. That's what life is for.
Clinton Terry, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the 5-8 Take.
Thank you.